latest stats that I've heard is that 57% of men and 54% of women have cheated on their partners. Can you tell us why?
The typical view has always been, well, because there's something missing in the relationship, because they're unhappy, they're miserable, they're lonely, they're depressed, they're once a cheater, always a cheater, they have no morals, because they feel neglected, because there is indifference in the relationship. There is a myriad of discontents within relationships that may propel people to respond to the kindness of strangers. Because I think that there are many relational betrayals. Contempt and neglect and violence and indifference, and nobody tells people,
get
leave,
a divorce,
leave, get the hell out, get the hell out. And especially on women, it's the real new pressure. God forbid you still would love the person who actually, you know, cheated on you. Maybe that person is a lot of things and cheated on you.
See, that's real talk.
It's like the shame of staying, you know. Now that you can go, you gotta get out. One day they cross a line that they never thought they would cross.
Right.
You know, why would they risk losing everything that they built? For what?
Right.
You know, this idea is that if you have everything that you want at home, there should be no reason to go looking elsewhere. Hence, if you go looking elsewhere, there is something missing. Either it's in you, either it's in your partner, but there must be a deficiency somewhere. One person who cheats on another, a perpetrator and a victim, a good person and a bad person. And it's a lot more complex.
Than that.
And if you were more, whatever, smarter, taller, thinner, richer, more powerful, more this, it wouldn't have happened. It's not the case.
Right. You might be married to someone who is just a innate adventurer. Like there's just certain kinds of desires within of that have nothing to do with you per se, but they are personal desires that need to be explored in some manner. And even if it's not necessarily an exploration that lasts forever, it's an exploration that needs to happen to get through a passage of some kind. That is an important idea because specifically for me in regards to creating now, redefining my marriage as a life partnership was the necessity of autonomy for myself and for Will, you know, and finding the core of us that wanted to be together outside of the constraints of the traditional ideas of marriage because they weren't working for us.
Right.
We went on that journey of that life partnership to find that autonomy and to find the true, authentic bond outside of obligation.
Right.
I don't want you to be obligated. What part of this is the part that you actually want? And the part that you want to be devoted to, and what part of it do I want and want to be devoted to outside of what we've been told we're supposed to be obligated to?
What were you told you have to do?
You know, you have to be a perfect wife. You have to be that source that supports his dreams, no matter what it is. Whatever he wants to build, you're there to support that. Our whole life looked like his dream.
And the title for that you got was, I'm his muse, I'm his...
Yeah, basically, you know, I'm his energy source. That's great, but I've got to create part of this life that is designed and looks like me.
And when you said that, was he receptive or he felt abandoned?
He felt abandoned at first. He felt really abandoned.
Because if you take a little bit of autonomy, you may leave altogether.
Exactly. And that's one of the reasons why I stayed in it the way I did for so long. Because I was so terrified. First of all, you never want to hurt the person that you love. I never want to create instability in that way. So I stayed in that position for so long because I just didn't know how to say it. It was one of those truths. When I say that the truths get deeper, that was a core truth that took years for me to just go, can't.
But you just made a fantastic distinction. It's not the same staying in a marriage versus staying in a role within this marriage.
Yes, yes.
You know, I have this way, I always think of relationships. For me, relationships are stories, right? So I think you pick a partner, you pick a story.
Right.
But then sometimes you find yourself recruited for a play that you didn't audition for.
Exactly.
And it's the role that you want to change.
Yes.
And people confuse changing the role with wanting to change the whole relationship and leave.
Right. Not only did I want to change the role, but I wanted to change the play.
And once you change the life story, you can create a new love story.
Exactly. Exactly. And that's exactly what has occurred.
Yeah.
And it's been beautiful. But when I tell you, it has been one of the most excruciating processes of my life. I wanted to personally break out of Will needing to be something for me because I felt like it was so unfair. And a lot of it had to do with my father issues. I just realized one day, I was like, this man is not your father. He's not. Stop it.
Or he's not meant to be everything your father was not.
Was exactly. And that was the thing. And I was like, you got to grow up. You got to be a woman. That little girl trauma does not work here. And that was the work I had to do.
But he must have, I mean, usually it takes two to tango. So if you...
Oh, no, that's what I learned.
His own, right?
Is that that's where we connected was our childhood traumas.
Yeah, because he has his own.
Exactly. And in my codependency, I was like, don't you worry. I'll take all your feeling and emotion. You don't have to deal with that. I'll deal with that for you. And that was the secret contract that I had made with him. And then I had to make the decision. One of the most painful decisions was, I got to give that back to you. I can't do that for you any longer. And I can't ask you to do it for me. We're going to have to be in this thing together as individuals, and we're going to have to be real grown in this because it ain't working like this. We got to do our own work.
But interestingly, when people do their own work, they're able to be more there for the other.
Yes.
Actually, I can be there for you because I'm not busy doing it from the place that says I'll be the custodian of everything that you don't want to deal with.
Yeah.
And then be upset about it.
Yes.
And then ask you to reward me for it.
That was it. That was the cycle right there. That was my cycle. And then I went into martyrdom.
And his will then be,
Yes.
look what I've done for you.
Yes.
You know, every relationship has a scorecard.
Yes.
Right? What you've done, what you gave up, what I gave up, you know. And when this thing happens, the scorecard gets revisited. And it's a lot of things that I was willing to do for us just because that I'm not, you know, they never said, now we are going to redistribute, you know, the needs assessment in our relationship, who gets what, when, what attention. No, I'm not okay anymore with you being out till 10 o'clock at night every night and me taking care of everything that the house looks so beautiful so you can be really proud of me and do absolutely not. C'est fini, as they say in French. Basta. Finito.
Right.
You know,
Because I think people don't really, and you talk about it in the book, that people are afraid to even sit down and have the discussion.
Right.
You know, but we
most
don't
people
have the
these
same
discussions
ideas.
after they have a crisis.
Yes.
Not before.
Right.
No.
And even like,
And that's
what
what it
is
was in my case. It was after the fact that I had the discussion. I'm glad I did, but
Right.
And what was your discussion?
we went into a relationship with the automatic expectation that sexual exclusivity was expected. Like this is how it is.
Right.
When you're supposed to be getting married, you're sexually exclusive. You're not going to be having sex with other people.
Right.
You know.
And I don't think people really talk about
We don't-
what is needed, what does it mean, what is being
Right.
exclusive or not.
But, you know, I think it's important to understand why is that conversation so difficult. Because I meet you and I fall in love with you. And I think I have found the one. And the one means, especially since I'm not 18 these days in the West, I'm 28. So I've been around. Now you are the one for whom I'm going to delete my apps. And you are going to fulfill every one of my needs. And how can I then say to you, in the same breath, I found the one, let's talk about what would happen if we had desires for others. What do we do with our sexuality? Can we have a sexual health conversations about boundaries, about desire, about fantasies, about past experiences, about trauma, about a lot of things?
Yeah.
No, we don't. Because the minute I tell you I want to talk about anything that isn't you, you're going to say what's wrong with me.
Right.
You know, monogamy used to be one person for life.
Right.
Today, monogamy is one person at a time.
Right.
You know, so
Right.
I come to you. It's not like I have been exclusive. It's that for you, I will stop being with anybody else. That's your importance now. You know, we live with a model. The romantic ideal is a tenacious model. And that model today is that, you know, I'm going to have with you everything that I was supposed to get in traditional marriage. You're going to be my co-parent, and I'm going to have economic support, and we're going to be partners. But on top of it, you're going to be my best friend. And you're going to be my confidant. And you're going to be my passionate lover. And you're going to help me become the best version of myself. You know, I'm going to climb the Olympus with you.
Right.
You know, so when this happens, it becomes the ultimate betrayal.
Yeah.
It's always been painful, but today it has become the ultimate betrayal. It's the first time that we divorce because there is infidelity. At the time, people talked about exclusivity or monogamy. It pretty much was an economic imposition on women.
Yeah.
It had nothing to do with love.
Right.
It was in order to know which are the children that I need to feed and who's going to get the cows when I die. Once we brought love into marriage, and once we brought sex to love, and we combined all of that with happiness, now when you cheat on me, it becomes a romantic crisis. It becomes an emotional betrayal. It's not just an economic betrayal. And now I start to think this whole thing that we created was a lie.
Right.
You know, it's a fraud. The
Yes.
15 years we had together were just one big lie, as if everything you've therefore said is not true.
Right.
And the whole thing comes crumbling down.
Right.
Wow.
You want him to be for you also exists inside of you. And it is a voice that says, normal that you get triggered. That's not unusual. But you also can breathe, you can reassure yourself, you can remember what just happened 2 hours before. That lets you know that you are in a completely different place from where you were. And you bring yourself on the solid ground so that you can also calm your nervous system and deal with the trigger and not feel completely at the mercy of him.
Hey, Dennis, do you have any clarity or understanding on why you might have cheated?
I don't. I think it's more of, do I still have it at my age?
Right.
Being accepted by other women, something like that.
Yep, got it. That makes sense.
The more you tell her that she lives inside of you in this beautiful way when you're not with her,
Yeah.
and the less that she will only reach out to you when she's triggered, because it will be replaced by a caring connection versus a fear-based connection.
Yeah, caring versus fear.
Fear-based.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
You really want to know if you still have it? Show her what you got.
I'll do it.
What would you say are the key elements in the healing and forgiveness process?
Okay. The first thing I do need to know is that you care about the fact that you hurt me. And that you can show me the appropriate guilt and remorse. And not that you tell me, I've already apologized, so what now? Do you want to bring it up again?
Right.
You know, how many times are we going to have to talk about this? No, how many times? Many, many, many times, because you have just fractured my reality and everything that I thought was is no more, and I'm trying to piece it back together, and you need to do me the courtesy of answering the question, even if I'm asking it to you 10 times.
And that's part of the healing process.
That's crucial.
You know, the old saying is that men aren't meant to be monogamous and that women are meant to be monogamous.
Oh, yeah.
You hear that all the time.
Yes.
You hear that all the time.
This idea that men want sex and women want love, we could look at it like that. But we could also say this. Men have historically and all over the world been given the permission to want sex.
Right.
Yeah.
And through sex, they have to access every other emotional need that is usually denied to them. It's the gate.
Yes.
Love, connection, intimacy, attention, tenderness, surrender, you name it. Sex is the only way that they can legitimately receive any of those things.
Right.
So, of course, it looks like all he wants is sex. But it's a code for everything else that is usually forbidden.
Right.
And women have received the language of love and intimacy. And so that's what she needs to use in order to access her desires, her sensuality, her sexuality.
Got it.
My worth, that I'm so easily replaceable, that you can go and rock everything that we have with some dude, like, who is this guy? You know, for that, you would destroy everything that we have built. Is that all I mean for you? It's a real crisis of meaning.
Oh, wow.
Well, there it is, Jennifer.
I got it.
All the time, is it's not that I wanted to find another person, it's that I wanted to find another self.
Right.
It's not that I wanted to leave the person that I'm with. I have a great husband. He's a fantastic father, etc., etc. But I wanted to leave who I had become.
Yep.
And relationships, committed relationships, marriage, family life, however beautiful it is, also sometimes can feel deadening,
Yep.
numbing, constraining,
Yep.
flattening, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah, and I think we hear women talk about that all the time.
Yeah,
how they
Lord
get-
knows
they
I
lose-
have.
Yeah.
So
You
I
talk
was a
about how you
mother.
lost yourself.
That's
Yeah.
right. I was a mother. I was a wife. I was taking care of his mother. I was taking care of my parents. This is the first time in I don't know how long that I did something that was just
For me. Okay. Renee is next on Skype.
Hey, Renee, welcome to the table.
Hello, hello.
Hi, Data. Thanks for having me on the show.
All the time is it's not that I wanted to find another person. It's that I wanted to find another self.
Right.
It's not that I wanted to leave the person that I'm with. I have a great husband. He's a fantastic father, etc., etc. But I wanted to leave who I had become.
Yep.
And relationships, committed relationships, marriage, family life, however beautiful it is, also sometimes can feel deadening,
Yep.
numbing, constraining,
Yep.
flattening, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah, and I think we hear women talk about that all the time.
Yeah,
how they
Lord
get-
knows
they
I
lose-
have.
Yeah.
So
You
I
talk
was a
about how
mother.
you lost yourself.
That's
Yeah.
right. I was a mother. I was a wife. I was taking care of his mother. I was taking care of my parents. This is the first time in I don't know how long that I did something that was just
For me. How would you define infidelity?
I think the heart of infidelity is the secrecy.
Is the secrecy.
The secrecy.
Okay.
Because you could have the same behavior in a negotiated, consensual way,
Right,
and then it is a
absolutely.
different story.
Right.
The center of infidelity is the fact that there is a secret.
Is the secrecy the aspect that creates the feeling
Yes.
of betrayal
Yes.
in people?
Yes, and the
Got it.
violation of trust, and the lying, and the duplicity, and the crazy making, and the gaslighting.
Right.
There's a secret. When you have a secret, it's like a mushroom.
Right.
If you won't tell me where you've been between 6 and 8, then you stop telling me where you've been between 4 and 6.
Right.
And this thing grows
Right.
and takes on a life of its own, and it lives there in the center of our life. And later, that's why you start to retell the whole story and say, "But when this was happening and this was this at the same time? I mean, were we at the table and you were looking with your phone underneath while you were singing me happy birthday? I mean, what?"
Yeah.
The secret, the fact that there's a whole other story going on in the midst of a place where I think I know what's going on. It's
Right.
one thing to not know the future. It's another thing to question your entire past.
Yeah. That's real talk.
I think the most important thing is really to make a distinction between I can't trust you versus my trust was broken and I bring a vulnerability about that with me.
Right. Right.
I carry this.
Right.
And you need to know that. I'm not, and it's going to take some time for me to really let go of that and feel calm again and be in your arms and not start thinking.
Right.
And it's really about holding a lot of it. And it's one thing is to own it, and one thing is to project it onto the other person. The question is, what do you do when you've left a relationship and you meet somebody new, and you carry the legacy
Right.
of the previous wound into your relationship? I think it's very, very common. I mean, we carry so many legacies of, and wounds from prior relationships. I think the most important thing is really to make a distinction between I can't trust you versus my trust was broken and I bring a vulnerability about that with me.
Right. Right.
I carry this.
Right.
And you need to know that. I'm not, and it's going to take some time for me to really let go of that and feel calm again and be in your arms and not start thinking.
Right.
And it's really about holding a lot of it. And it's one thing is to own it, and one thing is to project it onto the other person.
Right. Thank you. That's real talk right there.
The conversation about what are we going to do when we have these infidelities? How do we deal with lies? How do we deal with deception? How do we deal with roaming desires? How do we deal with sexual secrets, etc., has to become a part of any
conversation. And that's the challenge to our RTT community, to sit down and have these conversations now with your partner, because it could be life-changing to your relationship.
Yes. Esther, thank you.
Thank